Have you ever noticed the peculiar paradox of desire? How the things we chase most desperately seem to constantly elude our grasp? How the harder we try to capture and possess them, the more they slip through our fingers like water? Nowhere is this paradox more evident, more painfully lived than in our pursuit of love. We build our lives around this pursuit. We structure our days, our choices, our entire identities around finding that special someone who will complete us, heal our wounds, make us whole. Dating apps, self-improvement programs, relationship books, wardrobes designed to attract, personalities curated to appeal, an entire architecture of seeking constructed from the desperate belief that love is out there somewhere, and if we just try hard enough, search long enough, improve ourselves sufficiently, we will finally find it. But what if I told you that this very pursuit, this relentless chasing, is precisely what keeps love at bay? What if the reason so many men fail to find fulfilling love isn't that they're not trying hard enough, but that they're trying too hard? What if the secret to finding love isn't in the seeking, but in the ceasing to seek? What if the man who stops chasing love is, paradoxically, the one who finds it? If you enjoy this type of deep reflection, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. And most importantly, leave a comment below telling us if this has ever happened to you, or if you know someone who passed through this. You see, there's something fundamentally misaligned in how we approach love in our culture. We've been taught to treat it as an achievement, a milestone to reach, an object to acquire. We speak about finding love as if it's a treasure hidden somewhere, waiting to be discovered by the persistent seeker. We approach relationships like job interviews, trying to present our best qualities, to outshine the competition, to win the position of partner through superior performance. And when a relationship ends, we immediately resume the hunt, unable to tolerate the emptiness, the lack, the incomplete narrative. This approach to love isn't just ineffective, it's actively counterproductive. When we chase love, we transform it from a state of being into an object of pursuit. We turn the people we desire into prizes to be won, evaluating them based on how well they'll fill the emptiness we feel, how perfectly they'll complete our unfinished stories. And in doing so, we miss the profound truth that real love isn't found in filling an absence, but in experiencing a presence. The presence that emerges when we ourselves become complete, whole, centered in our own being. The first reason the man who stops chasing love is the one who finds it is that chasing creates a fundamental misalignment in energy. When you're chasing, you're operating from a position of lack, of emptiness, of need. You're saying, implicitly or explicitly, I am incomplete without this. I need this to be whole. And this energy of lack creates a subtle but powerful repulsion. It's not that people consciously think, this person seems needy, I'll stay away. It's more that the energy of chasing, of grasping, creates a disharmony that others can feel intuitively. A sense that something isn't quite right, isn't quite balanced. I remember speaking with a man, let's call him Michael, who had spent his 20s and early 30s in a constant state of pursuit, dating app after dating app, relationship after relationship, always looking, always seeking, always trying to find the one who would finally make his life complete. And the more desperately he sought, the more disappointed he became. Women would initially respond to his intensity, his focus, his desire, but as time went on, they would gradually pull away, sensing something off in his approach, something draining in his need. It was only when a personal crisis forced him to take a break from dating, to focus entirely on rebuilding his own life from the ground up, that something shifted. For the first time, he told me, I wasn't looking for someone to complete me. I was learning to be complete in myself. And here's the remarkable thing. Within 6 months of genuinely stopping his search, of truly letting go of the pursuit, he met a woman who is now his wife. Not because he was looking, but precisely because he wasn't. The second reason the man who stops chasing love is the one who finds it is that chasing distorts perception. When you're actively seeking love, you're not seeing people as they are. You're seeing them through the filter of your own needs, your own lack, your own fantasies of what a partner should be. You project onto them the qualities you're seeking, the role you need filled, the empty space in your life that needs occupying. And because your perception is clouded by these projections, you miss who they actually are. This distortion works in two destructive ways. On one hand, it leads to idealizing people who aren't right for you, seeing in them qualities they don't possess, potentials they'll never fulfill. On the other hand, it can lead to overlooking people who might be deeply compatible with you because they don't match your preconceived image of what a partner should look like or be like. Either way, your capacity to recognize genuine connection is compromised by the very act of seeking it. I once knew a woman who had a clear mental checklist for her ideal partner. Tall, successful, ambitious, from a similar cultural background, ready for commitment. She pursued this image relentlessly, passing over countless men who didn't fit the profile. And when she did find men who matched her criteria, the relationships inevitably failed because she was relating not to the actual person, but to her projection of who they should be. It was only when a health crisis forced her to step back from dating, to reevaluate her priorities, to let go of her rigid expectations, that she was able to recognize the quiet, steady love that had been there all along in a friend who matched almost none of her original criteria, but who saw and appreciated her in a way no one else had. The third reason the man who stops chasing love is the one who finds it is that chasing creates a subtle form of inauthenticity. When you're pursuing love, you're often not showing up as your true self. You're presenting a curated version, a performance designed to attract, to appeal, to win approval. You emphasize certain qualities and hide others. You agree with things you don't really agree with. You express interest in things that don't really interest you. You laugh at jokes you don't find funny. You shape yourself to fit what you think the other person wants. This inauthenticity might help you get initial attention, but it creates a fundamental instability in any connection that forms. Because the person isn't connecting with you, they're connecting with the performance you're putting on. And performances can't be maintained indefinitely. Eventually, the real you will emerge, and when it does, the other person will sense the mismatch, the disconnection between who you presented yourself to be and who you actually are. I remember a conversation with a man in his 40s who had a pattern of relationships that would start intensely but gradually fizzle out after a few months. As we explored this pattern, he realized that he was showing up as a carefully constructed version of himself in the early stages of dating, confident, carefree, without needs or wounds. But as the relationship progressed and real intimacy began to develop, his authentic self would start to emerge, more vulnerable, more complex, with real needs and fears. And the women he dated would feel confused and sometimes betrayed by this shift. This sense that the person they had connected with was being replaced by someone different. It was only when he began to show up authentically from the beginning, not performing confidence, but expressing his real mix of strengths and vulnerabilities, not hiding his needs but owning them from the start, that he was able to form a connection that could deepen over time rather than disintegrating. But this authenticity required him to stop chasing, to release the desperate need to impress or capture that had driven his performances. The fourth reason the man who stops chasing love is the one who finds it is that chasing creates unhealthy dynamics even when it succeeds. When a relationship forms through pursuit, it often establishes patterns that undermine its long-term health and stability. The pursuer continues to pursue, to seek validation, to need reassurance. The pursued continues to maintain some distance, some withholding, some power derived from being the desired object rather than the desiring subject. This creates an inherent imbalance, a push-pull dynamic that may be temporarily exciting, but becomes exhausting and unsatisfying over time. True partnership, the kind that can grow and deepen over decades, requires a fundamental equality, a mutual choosing, a balance of giving and receiving. But this equality is nearly impossible to establish when the relationship begins with one person chasing and the other being chased. The initial dynamic tends to persist, to reassert itself even when both people try to change it, to recreate itself in different forms throughout the life of the relationship. I've worked with countless couples trapped in these dynamics, the pursuer constantly seeking more closeness, more affirmation, more signs of love, the pursued feeling crowded, pressured, unable to give enough to satisfy their partner's needs. And I've seen how difficult it is to transform these patterns once they're established, how they tend to create cycles of frustration, conflict, and disconnection, even between people who genuinely care for each other. The fifth reason the man who stops chasing love is the one who finds it, is that chasing misunderstands the very nature of love. When we pursue love as something to find, to capture, to secure, we're relating to it as an object, a possession, something separate from ourselves that we need to acquire. But this is a profound misconception. Love isn't something you find. It's something you recognize. It's not something you obtain. It's something you allow. It's not something outside yourself. It's something you uncover within yourself. Think of it this way. You can't chase the sun. You can't make it rise through your pursuit, your desire, your effort. But you can position yourself to experience its light. You can remove the obstacles that block it. You can create the conditions that allow you to recognize and receive it when it appears. Love works the same way. You can't force it through pursuit, but you can create the conditions that allow it to emerge naturally, organically, in its own time and way. I once spoke with a spiritual teacher who described his approach to love this way. Stop looking for love like it's something to find. Start embodying love like it's something you already are. When you become a source of love rather than a seeker of it, love finds its way to you without effort, without chase, without grasping. It's drawn to you because like attracts like. Love recognizes itself. This shift from seeking love to embodying it represents a complete reversal of the conventional approach. Rather than asking, "How do I find someone to love me?" you begin asking, "How do I become someone capable of loving fully, openly, without conditions or expectations?" Rather than evaluating others based on how they might fulfill your needs, you focus on developing your own capacity to offer love, to create value, to contribute to another's well-being without demanding anything in return. The sixth reason the man who stops chasing love is the one who finds it is that chasing creates attachment to outcomes rather than appreciation of process. When you're pursuing love, you're fixated on a specific result, finding a partner, creating a relationship, securing commitment. This fixation on outcome causes you to evaluate every interaction, every date, every connection based on whether it's moving you toward your goal. And in doing so, you miss the beauty, the joy, the growth that's available in each experience, regardless of whether it leads to the outcome you're seeking. But when you stop chasing, when you release your attachment to outcomes, something remarkable happens. You begin to experience each connection for what it is, rather than for what it might lead to. You enjoy conversations without assessing their potential to develop into something more. You appreciate the unique qualities of each person you meet without immediately categorizing them as potential partner material. You allow relationships to unfold naturally, to reveal their own purpose and meaning, rather than forcing them into predetermined paths. This shift from outcome focus to process appreciation transforms your entire experience of dating and relating. What was once a goal-oriented struggle becomes a rich, unpredictable adventure. What was once evaluated in terms of success or failure becomes appreciated for the growth, learning, and connection it offers. regardless of where it leads. And paradoxically, this release of attachment to outcomes creates the space for genuine, lasting love to emerge, not because you captured it, but because you created the conditions for it to arise naturally. The seventh reason the man who stops chasing love is the one who finds it is perhaps the most profound of all. When you cease the desperate pursuit of love from others, you have the opportunity to discover the love that already exists within yourself. This isn't some sentimental platitude, it's a practical, experiential reality. The constant seeking of love outside yourself perpetuates the illusion that you lack love, that it's something others have that you need to obtain. But when you pause the search, when you turn your attention inward, you can begin to recognize the love that is already present in your own heart, your own awareness, your own being. This discovery of love as your nature, rather than something you need to find, changes everything. It transforms how you show up in relationships, how you interact with potential partners, how you experience connection and intimacy. You no longer come from emptiness seeking to be filled, but from fullness seeking to share. You no longer approach others with the underlying message of complete me, but with the invitation of let's share the completeness we each already possess. You no longer evaluate connections based on what you can get, but on what can be created together. I witnessed this transformation in a friend who, after a painful divorce, spent several years intensely pursuing a new relationship, desperate to fill the emptiness he felt. Despite meeting many potential partners, nothing seemed to work. The relationships would start promisingly, but quickly deteriorate into the same patterns of neediness, insecurity, and eventual disconnection. It was only when he finally took a full year off from dating, focusing instead on rediscovering his own interests, rebuilding his relationship with himself, and developing his capacity for self-love and self-companionship, that things changed. The strangest thing, he told me later, is that I actually stopped wanting a relationship, not in a resigned or bitter way, but in a genuine way. I discovered I was already complete, already whole. I enjoyed my own company. I felt full of love, even without someone to give it to. And it was precisely at this point, when he had truly let go of chasing, when he had genuinely discovered his own completeness, that he met the woman who would become his life partner. Not because he was looking, but because he had become the kind of person who could offer love rather than just seek it. So, what does all this mean for you? If you recognize yourself in the pattern of chasing love, it doesn't mean you need to swear off dating or relationships. It doesn't mean you need to pretend you don't want partnership. It doesn't mean you need to resign yourself to being alone. What it means is that a fundamental shift in approach is needed. From seeking to finding, from pursuing to allowing, from needing to offering. This shift begins with a simple but powerful question. What if the love I'm seeking isn't something I need to find, but something I need to uncover within myself? What if my task isn't to pursue love, but to become it? From this question, a different way of approaching relationships naturally emerges. You begin to focus less on finding the right person and more on becoming the right person, the kind of person capable of recognizing, appreciating, and sustaining genuine love when it appears. You begin to value connections not for where they might lead, but for what they offer in the present moment. You begin to show up authentically rather than performatively, trusting that the right connection will form, not despite your true self, but because of it. Most importantly, you begin to recognize that the periods between relationships aren't merely empty waiting rooms, meaningless intervals before real life begins. They're vital spaces for growth, for self-discovery, for developing the very qualities that will allow you to create and sustain the love you desire when it appears. They're not absences to be filled as quickly as possible, but opportunities to be embraced for their unique gifts. The man who stops chasing love is the one who finds it, Not because he's given up on love, but because he's given up on the misconception that love is something to be chased. Not because he no longer desires connection, but because he's discovered a deeper truth about how genuine connection forms. Not because he's resigned to being alone, but because he's recognized that aloneness itself can be a doorway to the very love he's been seeking. So if you find yourself caught in the cycle of pursuit, of seeking, of chasing love, I invite you to experiment with letting go, not forever, not as a permanent stance, but as an exploratory practice. What happens when you release the desperate need to find someone? What emerges in the space created by that release? What aspects of yourself become available to be discovered, to be developed, to be expressed when you're no longer channeling all your energy into the search? You might discover, as so many have before you, that love isn't found through pursuit but through presence, that it doesn't arrive when you grasp for it, but when you create the space for it to emerge, that the man who stops chasing love isn't giving up on love at all. He's simply approaching it in the only way that actually works, by becoming love itself.